Okay, I think we're a couple of minutes past 8, and so I'll start kicking things off. I'd like to, first of all, thank you all for attending early this morning. Glad you could be here today. My name is John Drazic. I'm a Regional Energy Solutions Manager with FortisBC. I'm coming to you today from my home office. I'm on Central Vancouver Island in the Neuse Bay, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Wade Benner. Wade, who many of you are likely to know, is our Energy Solutions Manager, who works with our builder developer customers in the central and southern interior, as well as the East Kootenays. Wade works hard to make sure he gets your projects connected to natural gas at the lowest possible cost. He's often providing and working with our operations teams to make sure our crews are there when you need us. And he's often providing innovative energy solutions for you as well, and making sure that you're both aware of and taking advantage of a multitude of incentives that FortisBC offers to the building and development community to build high efficiency buildings using high efficiency equipment. So while Wade and I work with our customers in the interior, primarily on our natural gas system for their projects, and much of our content today is actually going to be focused on that side of our industry related to the natural gas system. However, should any of you have questions related to the electric side of the business, we're going to do our best to get the answers for those to you and get the right responses, right resources to respond as well. So I'd like to start by thanking Jennifer and the UDI for hosting today's event. Fortis strongly supports the work that the UDI is doing and advocating for the development industry, which includes providing high caliber learning opportunities. And we hope that we can meet that bar today with this presentation. So a little bit about how this will work today. To kick this off, I'll be presenting first on climate policy. Wade Benner is going to join us after that with some important information on our rebates, some program offerings, and some interesting newer innovative technologies that he'd like to share. I'd like to let you know that please feel free to post any questions that you have. Use the Q&A function. You'll see it on the toolbar. We're going to be monitoring it, and we're going to do our best to answer them either during or after the presentation. And in the event we don't get to your question during today's event, we're going to follow up with answers through Jennifer, who's going to later post them. So if you've been watching the news, you may have noticed a lot more content related to energy policy. Operating utility was once, not that long ago, rather routine, and I'll even say maybe not that seemingly exciting of a business. But that's all changed with the development of policies that are centering on lowering GHG emissions that are going to result in impacts that are going to affect every British Columbian for generations to come. And that's whether you're here today as a builder, a developer, a potential homeowner, or a present homeowner, whether you work for a municipality, elected official, or staff, you're a supplier, or regular tax-paying British Columbian. We're going to see impacts on every British Columbian that we've never seen before. And it's as the largest provider of energy in BC, the only integrated energy supplier with both gas and electric and alternative energy systems, that we feel that we can provide you with some unique insight into the interrelationship of the province's electric and gas assets, and how policy decisions that are being made today and in the near future really need to consider these unique properties and capabilities of these systems to ensure that British Columbians continue to have access to safe, reliable, resilient, and affordable energy in the future. So if you're anything like me, you've already forgotten my name. And that's okay. What I want to put this slide in for was to just give you a quick hint on how to find us. If you just Google Energy Solutions Managers, FortisBC, you're going to get a link hit to our website, and it's going to show you by area who the Energy Solutions Manager is that can help you with your project or answer any questions that you have. So super easy to find us. So today you're going to hear from a couple of guys that work in a gas company about how we can play a leading role in helping municipalities, the province, and indeed Canada meet their climate objectives. So question that, honest question they may have is, really, can a gas system actually reduce emissions? Well, I can tell you that when it comes to climate strategy, Fortis recognizes the urgency of addressing climate change, and we are embracing the role that we can play in building a cleaner future. So to answer the question, can the gas system actually help reduce emissions? That answer is a strong yes. So within our clean growth pathway to 2050, something I'll get into a little more detail on shortly, is our goal to actually lower the emissions of the energy in our pipeline. And we're going to do that by displacing conventional natural gas that we would otherwise source from our resources in northern British Columbia or now Alberta. And we're going to displace that by introducing a carbon neutral renewable natural gas. So what is renewable natural gas? Well, I actually hope you already know the answer to that because we spend a ton of money putting ads out and trying to get the word out about this. But I'll help you out here explaining that renewable natural gas, or commonly referred to as RNG, it's made from organic waste that we produce everyday activities as consumers, as industry. Organic material winds up in a landfill, it rots, it releases methane. For more than 10 years, Fortis has been teaming up with RNG suppliers, including local farms, landfills, green energy companies, and municipalities to capture that methane. And we're actually purifying it, and we're making what was called a renewable natural gas. We're leaders in North America in this regard. By capturing methane that would otherwise escape into the atmosphere and using it to make a renewable energy, that makes RNG a truly carbon neutral energy source. So some local examples of these projects include the Glenmore landfill in Kelowna, Salmon Arm landfill. Biogas, another form of RNGs, this time created from wood waste from the forestry operation, something that British Columbia has a huge supply of, is soon going to be delivered into our system from a project that we've partnered with Ren Energy to develop, and that's located in Fruitvale. So what I'm doing is I'm demonstrating that, hey, we've got a proven track record of actually producing a carbon neutral energy. So a good question might be, well, how does that compare, to electricity, commonly referred to as, in British Columbia, as the cleanest form of energy? Well, to explain that, you need to understand how greenhouse gas intensity of energy is determined. And the measurement of the GHGI, or greenhouse gas intensity, is determined by understanding its CO2 or equivalency content in kilograms per gigajoule of energy. So the information that you see here is provided by the province of British Columbia. They provide a report on the greenhouse gas intensity of numerous fuels, different sources of energy. With this slide, showing a comparison of renewable natural gas compared to electricity. So as you can see, renewable natural gas has the lowest GHGI of any of these, that including electricity supplied by Fortis or electricity supplied by BC Hydro. BC Hydro coming in at 3 kilograms per gigajoule, our electricity from Fortis at 0.72 grams or kilograms per gigajoule, and renewable natural gas at 0.29. It's truly the cleanest form of energy in the province. The asterisk, if you're wondering, that just refers to the accounting that the provincial government did. They excluded any imported energy in this calculation. So while the electric utilities may swap energy at night, it may make sense to bring in energy from different grids in North America. It might have higher carbon. They excluded that from this calculation. This is just looking at the energy GHGI emissions related to electricity produced in British Columbia. So we've got some low carbon energy. Now, bringing that together, we talked about in the write-up about this presentation, we're going to talk about policy and how that matters. Unfortunately, I have to bring a little algebraic equation into this. This brings in where we're measuring greenhouse gas intensity in buildings. So, and what's happening on this front. So you're probably all aware of the BC Energy Step Code and how it measures the efficiency of a building relative to a code standard building. Calculation of that building's efficiency is actually agnostic when it comes to the fuel source, and it looks primarily at the efficiency of the equipment as well as the insulation, air barrier, windows, other building things like the orientation, a number of other factors. But what we're starting to see are, in some jurisdictions, is an actual limit on the greenhouse gas intensity of the building. That's something that local governments like North Vancouver, for example, have developed as a tool in lowering GHG emissions within their municipality. And this slide really shows that this formula, as I mentioned, that determines the greenhouse gas intensity per square meter of livable building space. So in this case, the greenhouse gas intensity in kilograms per square meter is determined by determining how much energy is used on site multiplied by that emissions factor of the energy. So now the type of energy makes a difference. It's no longer agnostic to that. And you divided that by the livable building space. So for our builder and developer community, to give you an idea of what this means, what does this actually translate to into action for builders and developers? So in North Vancouver, as of July 1st, if you're taking out a permit for a Part 9 home, you're either going to build that home to Step 5, or you're going to you can build it to Step 3 if you have a low carbon energy system, if you hit their GHGI metric. If you're building Part 3 residential, that's Step 4 or Step 3 with a low carbon energy system. And similar with Part 3 commercial, you're at Step 3 or Step 2 with a low carbon energy system. So we don't know if these measures are going to be adopted elsewhere, but what we do want you to know is that Fortis is developing the lowest carbon form of energy available, and we very much want to be at the table with municipalities to share our story and support them with their climate goals. The concern that we have is that independent of understanding the greater ramifications outside of the boundaries of the municipality where the energy is actually generated and distributed, there could be some serious ramifications that need to be considered that I'll detail shortly. So we've got a low carbon form of energy. It is can meet low GHGI standards. Another question you might have is as well, how credible is this? Is it actually recognized? Is this just something Fortis is making up? Well, no, it's for real. And if you're familiar with Clean BC, the province's plan to meet its climate objectives, we developed in partnership our Clean Growth Pathway. And it was very influential in shaping Clean BC. That's the province's plan to reduce GHG emissions. And the province really recognizes the important role that FortisBC and the natural gas system can play in decarbonization. Notably, Clean BC sets one of the world's first renewable gas blends targets. So by 2030, 15% of natural gas delivered from our distribution system is going to be renewable. This is the single largest action to reduce GHG emissions in the building sector. In fact, 75% of the GHG reductions identified in Clean BC in the building sector are going to be achieved through renewable natural gas target. Fortis is going to achieve the remaining 25% through demand side management programs. That's our incentives that we have for building high efficiency buildings with high efficiency equipments. And as well, we're going to reduce in other sectors like transportation and industry. We've got a number of plans there to reduce emissions, for the whole umbrella of energy in the province. So we have a carbon neutral form of energy. It's recognized. It's going to play a huge role in helping the province meet its climate goals. Another reasonable question might be, okay, but how much of this RNG do you have? Do you have enough? Are we scaling up fast enough to meet the need? It's a good question, and it's a daunting task, but we're up for it and we're on the right trajectory. So what this slide is showing is where we're at today with our current supply. It's in petajoules per year, and it's just showing, what we've got in the hopper and where we plan to be. So at the end of 2020, operating projects that we have right now supply about 0.4 petajoules of energy, renewable gas energy in our system. As a percentage of the energy we delivered, that's about 1% of our throughput. I mentioned we're the largest supplier of energy in the province. 1% is still a lot of energy, but it's 1%. We got to ramp that up. But as we can see here, by the end of 2021, we're going to expect to see other projects in operation. They're going to supply about another 0.7 petajoules. By 2023, we forecast to have close to another 6 petajoules of energy. That's already been approved by our regulator. And we're actively negotiating contracts moving out to 2025. You can see another 1.2, another 3.9. And there's also potential upside of about another 13 petajoules per year that could come from optimizing operations of existing projects and new opportunities. So yeah, it's expanding the supply is going to be a huge task, but we are quickly scaling up in line to meet the goal. So I'll start right away by saying I apologize for the incredibly small print on this slide that is showing projects that are either active today or those that are planned. And I'll just kind of, if you can't quite see them, the first section up here, these are existing projects, and the bottom half here is a number that are coming online in the future. So Fraser Valley biomass, that's anaerobic digestion of farm waste, creating renewable natural gas. There's Kelowna landfill, Columbia Shuswap, that's in Salmon Arm, as I mentioned. City of Surrey, exciting project there. Curbside organic composting material is being used and to create RNG that's going back into fuel the fleet that actually picks up the waste. So that's a pretty cool project. And then we have a number of projects that are coming online, including CRD, Capital Regional District in Victoria, and their landfill, and a number of other projects throughout. So, mention about the wood biomass project that we have there. This, you may note here that under the province, where these are located, there's quite a number in British Columbia, but you also see Alberta, you also see Ontario. So this brings up the concept of notional displacement or carbon offsetting. This is an accepted practice of displacing higher carbon sources in one jurisdiction and claiming that corresponding credit for the GHGI reduction in the jurisdiction where the customer is actually purchasing the RNG. And it's important to note that this is actually true whether the project is in BC, connected to our grid, right in our system, or whether it's in another jurisdiction, as we have no way to ensure that a molecule of RNG that's created, and use the example of created at, for example, in Salmon Arm, that's injected into our system, is going to reach a customer who elects to purchase renewable natural gas that might have his burner tip located in his home in North Vancouver. In either case, whether it's interprovincial or outside, the purchase of RNG allows us to put that supply of clean energy into our system. And what that means is we displace the purchase of conventional higher carbon natural gas. So in order for Canada, for province, Canada to meet its climate goals, we really need all the tools on the shelf, and we really can't afford not to take advantage of proven technology and sources of clean energy, regardless of their location. Because the environment actually, as we can all know, it doesn't really recognize a border when it comes to emissions reductions. And the real development of the concept of notional displacement and carbon offsetting, the reality is it's really unleashed a gold rush of a modern day gold rush of activity into the sphere of renewable energies, where there is been great sources of RNG being developed all around the world, with the real winner being the environment. So how about cost? Next question should be, okay, great, you got it. You're bringing the supply on, it's clean. What about cost? How does it compare to traditional natural gas? Or how about electricity? So with this slide, we're showing price comparison. And this is in dollars per kilowatt. So you might be familiar with your rates, whether you're a FortisBC customer, electric customer, we're in that 9 to 11 cents in step 1 or block 1, and slightly higher for block 2 at 14 or 13 cents. Renewable natural gas is coming in very affordably at 6.6 cents equivalent per kilowatt, which even compares favorably to traditional natural gas at 4.1 cents kilowatt hour. So to kind of look at where we are now, can the gas system help reduce emissions? The answer is yes. We've got a target through our 30 by 30, that's what you see behind me, of reducing our customers' emissions by 30% by 2030, and with our overall goal to achieve 80% reductions by 2050. So it's at this point that I'm going to leverage some information from a study FortisBC commissioned called our Pathways Report, which looks at different options to achieving the province's objective of reducing GHG emissions, which are the goal being 80% below 2007 levels by 2050. So we explored two options to achieve this goal. One is relying on the electric system as the primary energy source. So let's put all our chips in electric, let's move away from natural gas, let's get everybody using clean electricity. And we also said, look at a diversified approach, one that utilizes both the natural gas system as well as the electric system to achieve that same goal, the same level of GHG emissions. Tell us what are the issues that come up, what are the costs, what are the results. So what this report illuminated is the uniqueness of our province and why we need specific made in BC pathways and analysis. So we all know that BC is a unique place. All you have to do is look outside your door. You know, we live in a very unique and beautiful environment, and we're blessed to have abundant supply currently of hydroelectricity in our system. So that actually, and think about that goal, 80% reduction by 2050. Our electric system is already clean. We really don't have the ability to further decarbonize the electric system. So it's really going to take some significant effort to get GHG reductions by in overall in our province. Consider other jurisdictions, for example, and this is why, again, we have to consider BC and not look to other jurisdictions sometimes to say, hey, we need to do what they did. Because in a lot of locations, other jurisdictions, they saw a significant GHG reduction simply by switching to thermal electric energy. They don't have the hydroelectric supply, so they're using heavier hydrocarbons like oil or coal. And they switched those over to natural gas. And they had significant GHG emissions that they could measure and say, hey, look at the reductions we got. We don't have that option. And we have to look for our reductions elsewhere. The goal is set, the province has set it. Consider that we've got, this is very unique to us. We have our peak energy, the relatively large winter heating need. That's happening at a time when alternative energy like solar or wind, they may be less able to actually meet that demand when it occurs. And again, unlike other jurisdictions. BC is also blessed with significant amounts of renewable energy potential, both renewable power, bioenergy, hydrogen, all unique to British Columbia. And this means that BC needs to look internally, look at what we need to do here and not look elsewhere, what's happening in other jurisdictions like California, and superimpose that here in BC. So to explain the uniqueness of our energy demands in BC, we really need to have a look at peak demand. So heat is a major energy use in our province. About 50% of the energy consumption is for heat in BC, and by and large, that demand for heat is actually very peaky. In other words, it's not happening constantly over the whole year, but it happens in peaks when it gets cold. This means that your energy delivery system, whatever it is, needs to be designed with enough capacity to meet the peaks. So the gas system is specifically designed to meet this energy need. Over 50% of the 50% of the energy we deliver is provided really in only 30% of the year. With that said, I want to demonstrate to you how much energy the gas system can deliver in the province. So what we're seeing here is a typical day on the FortisBC system. It's spanning a timeline from 8 a.m. over on the left here, and it kind of goes over to 7 a.m. on the right. And this yellow line here is showing the load on our system during that summer day. And we're moving about 10 terajoules an hour. Which if you look over here on the right axis, that's about 3,000 megawatts or 3 gigs of electric capacity. This is primarily people's water heaters and for industry. Then you move to a typical winter day. This is sometime in November, and the weather's getting colder. People start turning their furnaces on here. So already you can see the gas system's able to significantly ramp up, and this is an important point to watch here. We're ramping up to deliver the energy. On this day, we're delivering about 3.5 times more energy than a summer day, between 8 and 10,000 megawatts of generating capacity. Okay, now we're getting to coldest day in 2019. So now we're moving 5 times more energy. And at every point in this day, we're delivering more energy than the maximum output of our entire provincial electric system. But the gas system even has more capacity than that. In 2020, we saw one of the coldest events in the Lower Mainland in 25 years. And I know you're going to feel real sorry for us for coming from the interior. During that cold spell, temperatures went down to as low as -9 centigrade. I know, wicked cold. But at that time, it's important to note, while we're moving, over 18,000 megawatts worth of energy, we still had 30% additional capacity to go. We still weren't capped out. So let's compare that to the same days on the electric system. Here's that summer day, moving about 6 gigs of energy, move to a typical winter day, about 8, and then you get to these coldest days and you see they're at 10. So we're more than 60% of that maximum output of that electric system. And the gas system is moving a huge amount of energy to satisfy those heating needs. And this is the point here, decarbonizing this energy, if you were going to bring this on, this is going to take a massive amount of generating capacity. In other words, you need to have a firm supply of energy to meet any cold day event. It's not an option to not have the energy in a BC winter day. This means that variable, renewable energy, things like wind and solar, all good stuff, but they may not be good enough when it comes to meeting that peak demand. And they might require significant either sources of new dams, pump storage, or batteries to meet that. So regardless, it's important to note that regardless of the path that we take forward, whether we look at a diversified approach that uses both the gas and the electric system as Fortis proposes in its clean growth pathway, or whether an agenda driven by municipalities primarily or province that says, let's go on electrification path, they're both going to result in a shortage of electric capacity to meet peak demand. And from our Pathways report, we indicated that we're going to start to see a shortfall in electricity generation about 2030. I think BC Hydro just released a report that is in line with that. I think they said 2032. And that's when additional capacity is going to be required. This is the main challenge in an electrification pathway. A pathway that local governments have a large hand in developing. And as we saw with the North Vancouver example or City of Vancouver, where this is where informed decisions need to be made to ensure that we can reliably meet peak energy demands. Our analysis shows that by imposing regulations and policies that favor the electric system over the gas system would result in the need for an additional 9,000 megawatts of clean capacity by 2050. In terms of scale, Site C is about 1.1 megawatts. So give you an idea of the scale of the energy differential we have here. It's a massive challenge. It would require that we rebuild our entire electric system again by an additional 2/3. But important to note is that even with our diversified pathway that helps, that we've put forward, that reaches the province's goal, is also going to require significant electrification, additional 5,000 megawatts. It's going to be required, but at least it avoids the need for that additional 4,000 megawatts of load that would otherwise be transferred onto our system. So a good question at this time would be, what's this going to cost? Well, it really depends on the path we choose, electrification or diversified. So Guidehouse, the group that developed our Pathways report, evaluated all the costs of doing so. And it's clear, and I'm going to show this here. This is showing an electrification pathway, and these are hundreds of billions, and this is looking at out to 2050. So on an electrification pathway, you can see it's at 2050, we're looking at about 750 billion. And this diversified pathway comparison here, and I apologize because on my screen, diversified says it's blue, but I think it's actually yellow. You can see there's cost both ways. This is our point. However, there's about $100 billion savings by going, $100 billion savings by looking at a diversified approach. That's because even though renewable natural gas is might be expensive compared to the conventional natural gas, it's less costly to bring on that gas than it is to develop new electric power capacity. So we've got a wonderful asset in the 47,000 kilometers of transmission distribution gas assets that we have in BC, and it can deliver that clean energy needed to meet our climate goals. What we're proposing is that the better approach is to continue to use that system and not park it on a shelf and expand the electric system. But again, both pathways are going to require significant levels of investment, and Fortis is positioned to help contribute, but it's really going to take all parts of society to help achieve this. Another point I'd like to make on the chart is that 2030 is a real important point, and that's where costs between the pathways start to diverge. Up to 2030, costs are fairly similar, and that's because both pathways that we studied, we put together the analysis on, included having Site C being built. That's already in play. So there's really no cost difference, 2030, 2032, whatever that number might be. But it's really after that date when the supply of energy from Site C is tapped up in the electrification pathway, and this is where more resources are going to need to be added. The point being that we are potentially making policy decisions today with significant long-term costs, and we need to understand what those may be. So in summary, we've shown you that we've got a proven resource to help meet our climate goals at a cost savings of $100 billion over an electrification pathway. That a diversified pathway considers peak demand and can be relied on to provide the energy when it's needed. It's not an option not to have power in BC in winter when we face peak demand. And that it's not about pitting electricity versus natural gas. It's not an either or. It's both and, or as we like to say, it's not pipes versus wires here. It's pipes and wires together. And on that point, on the cost difference I mentioned, and for builder developers in the audience here, consider how utilities can recover costs. You know, how would the additional 100 billion be recovered is a reasonable question. Well, utilities really only have three options. You know, they can increase rates. So all the ratepayers are going to pay a higher cost for their energy. They can, if you're a certain utility, perhaps offload some cost to taxpayers. That way everybody pays, regardless of what type of energy they use, how much they use, etc. Or the third way, and this is important to note, is you can recover costs from those that are requesting service, from new customers, like builders and developers when you apply for service. And this is where you could face potentially higher costs to connect to the utility. And it's on that note that we feel it's important for you to be informed and to be heard when climate policy decisions are being made. We've got a great relationship with municipalities in the interior, where in general, people have a better appreciation and awareness of the importance of reliable and affordable energy. And we're going to continue to do our part in offering our expertise and our knowledge on the greater energy picture to the municipalities, to the province, to assist them in developing energy policies. But where we would appreciate your support as an association that has significant social capital, and as well as members who strive to provide with what you do, you're looking to build the most cost-effective buildings you can, is to advocate on behalf of a diversified approach, one that provides the most resilient, reliable, affordable, and cost-effective means to meet our shared climate objectives. So with that, I'd like to, that kind of concludes my presentation. And I'm going to stop my share function here and just do a little bit of a time check. I see we've got a couple of questions here. There's a question about hydrogen. Yes, hydrogen, Gord, is definitely part of our renewable gas mix that we're developing. It's it's early in development. There are some jurisdictions in Europe that are trying to find a way to blend that and put it in their pipeline. We're doing the same in British Columbia. We've got some pilot projects. It's got unique characteristics of the energy, and we need to consider how it can be transported safely through our system and burn safely in our customers' burner tips. It's very much going to play a large role in diversifying our renewable natural gas portfolio. There's a question about investing in solar electricity or whatever, something along those lines. And I want to point out as well that Fortis is an integrated energy provider. In our clean growth pathway, we're integrated utility, electricity and natural gas and alternative energies. And we're very much invested. We've got some very exciting expansion of our fleet chargers for the electric charging. That's happening all over British Columbia. We're investing in solar energy projects, and Penticton, I think, is an example. And it's both utilities. Our clean growth pathway is not just we spoke a lot about the natural gas aspect of it, and for important reasons why, but the way we're going to hit our target of lowering our customers' emissions is by both our electric and our gas assets, increasing incentives towards higher efficiency equipment, regardless of whether it is natural gas or electricity. We're using every arrow in our quiver here to help reach this goal. So I want to be real clear that our pathway, our clean growth pathway, is using both approaches to help lower our customers' emissions and making significant investments in those regards. So with that, a little bit of a time check here. It's about 20 to 9. So I think we're doing good for time. And Wade, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Great. Let me just get share my screen here. Do a little flip flop. Just bear with me. Technology is not always my friend. All right, how we doing?
That's looking good, Wade.
There we go. Okay, right on. Let me just get back to the beginning. Well, thank you, John. Man, every time I watch this presentation, I still take little tidbits away from it. There's a lot of information to digest, even for those of us who have watched it numerous times. So for those of you in the audience, I'm sure there'll be questions, and we'll have an opportunity to address those questions after the presentation if we can't get around to them today. Your presentation makes a good question. Is the municipal and provincial government's push towards electrification, is it the right thing to do? As it appears to be a short-term solution that's going to have some very long-term consequences for our energy supply, as well as energy affordability and reliability for those of us who enjoy living in beautiful British Columbia. Well, good morning, everybody. As John mentioned, my name is Wade Benner. I'm an Energy Solutions Manager based here in Kelowna. My primary responsibility with Fortis is to continue adding new customers and growing our natural gas grid, as well as promoting our residential rebates, which I will be going over today. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I am wearing pants, just so if anybody was wondering. Seems to be a thing in this world of virtual meetings. So we're still professional, even though we're working from home. So this morning, I'm going to take a few minutes to go over both our residential and commercial rebates, as well as discuss a new and emerging technology we're seeing in the residential construction market. And finally, we'll visit one of our most successful metering programs we've had in the condo market, which I'm sure several of you have heard of and maybe even had installed in your condo buildings. So for nearly a decade now, FortisBC has supported the residential construction industry by offering rebates to help offset the incremental costs to build new homes that perform better than a house built to minimum code. So as you can see, way back in, excuse me, I got dual monitors going on. Way back in 2012, excuse me, we introduced the very first version of our new home program, and we used the EnerGuide rating system as our measuring stick. And quite simply, if you built a home that achieved an EnerGuide rating of 80 or higher, you received a $2,000 rebate. And then in 2016, we went from using the EnerGuide rating system to using the Energy Star standard for new homes as the measuring stick to get our $2,000 rebate. Pretty straightforward. But more recently, oops, wrong screen, my bad. In 2018, we redesigned our new home program once again with a tiered rebate approach, which aligned with the newly adopted Energy Step Code as the energy performance standard for our new home program. So if you build a more efficient home than one built to minimum code, you can qualify for rebates from anywhere between $3,000 to $10,000, depending on which step you achieve. So for the new home program, you have two different options, and they are right here. So you have option A, which is our step code rebate. Quite simple. You build a house, you get it modeled, you get it blower door tested. If you achieve step 2, 3, 4, or 5, you get the corresponding rebate. Things to note, these rebates have been temporarily increased by $2,000 each. So up until a little while ago, this was a $1,000 rebate, a $2,000 rebate, a $4,000 rebate, and an $8,000 rebate. But we did increase those rebates by $2,000 on each step, and that is until the end of next year. I don't know what's going to happen after that, but at least going forward for the next year and a half, you know that these rebates are available for you. And the other thing to note is that step 5, the large rebate, you must get pre-approved before applying for that one. So just in case anybody's planning to build a ultra high efficient home. The other option is option B, which is if you're just building your home to minimum code or step code 1. There are some municipalities that have not adopted step code yet, and there's some that are still at step 1. For those ones, if you decide not to go step code, you can get additional or other rebates like water heaters. Now, just remember, this is an either or, not a both. You can't get the step code and the water heater. You can either get the step code or the water heater. In addition, we offer a $1,000 incentive for your energy advisor if you're getting your homes modeled and blower door tested. 200 of that rebate will be sent directly to the energy advisor, and the other 800 is for the builder. In addition, we have other rebates like Interchoice rated gas fireplaces. So it used to be a $300 rebate, but until the end of next year, like the step code, it's been bumped up to $500. And we offer Energy Star appliance rebates for various natural gas and electric rebates if you're in Fortis's electric grid. We also offer a $1,000 rebate for smart thermostats and a $250 rebate if someone is interested in installing a drain water heat recovery system. Okay. It is important for you to know that our step code rebates up here on the left are not available in BC Hydro territory unless you install both gas, heating, and hot water. So for example, if you're building a house in West Kelowna or Vernon or the majority of Lake Country and you install an electric water heater, you will not get the step code rebate because Fortis needs to realize this both gas and electric savings to justify these rebates. So just keep that in mind. So which option should you choose? Well, in most instances, choosing the step code rebate makes most sense because the rebate amounts are the highest. But if you're building in a municipality that hasn't adopted the step code, or maybe has only adopted step one and you don't plan to build any higher than step one, option B might be better because you do get the water heater rebate and you do get the Energy Advisor Support Initiative if you build to step one and you get the Energy Advisor to do the modeling and blower door testing. One of the really nice things about this program, which has been a bit of an issue in our other versions of the New Hope program, is that your Energy Advisor actually completes the rebate application on your behalf and submits it to Fortis to be paid. This means there's no application or paperwork for the developer or the builder, which has always been an obstacle for us to get the dollars out the door because, to be honest with you, so many people are just too busy to go through and fill out the application that money was left on the table. But the Energy Advisors are invested in this and they do all the paperwork on your behalf. So that was a great improvement to the program. All right, so if the previous slide wasn't too confusing, we're now going to talk about our brand new design offer program. This program is intended to reimburse the costs of engaging a mechanical designer, a building envelope consultant, and or a facilitator if you decide to proceed down the integrated design process. And this rebate is up to $7,000 for single family homes and up to a maximum of $50,000 for townhouse projects. And I'll explain a little more about the townhouse version. So the main purpose of the design offer is to incent builders and developers to start looking at what they will need to do to meet the higher levels of step code, like steps 4 and steps 5, that are going to be adopted by our local governments over the next several years. I believe City of Kelowna has just adopted step 3, but they've provided some leniency on that as we adjust to the new step. And we know that not too far down the road, we're actually going to be looking at step 4, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other municipalities that are going to be doing that as well. Keep in mind that we need to be building to step 5 by 2032, which really isn't that far away. Getting to step 3 wasn't a huge challenge for many of our local builders because we've been building exceptional homes in the Okanagan for years now. But achieving steps 4 and steps 5 are going to be exponentially more difficult. So as you can see, this design offer is available for builders pursuing steps 3, 4, or 5 only. It's for Part 9 residential buildings. That includes laneway homes or carriage homes and town homes. The rebate amounts are, if you go down this path, it's a flat $1,000 rebate if you decide to go down the integrated design process. And you must use a pre-approved IDP facilitator. Excuse me. We also cover 100% of the building envelope and mechanical designer costs up to a maximum of $6,000 per home. And you must use pre-approved contractors for that as well. And we will basically pay the invoice. So as long as the total of the invoices is not over $6,000, we will pay whatever those costs are from those 2 consultants as part of this process. For townhome projects, the rebates are not per unit, but it's per unique unit. So if you have a 30-unit townhouse project and you've got 4 unique units, then we would look at 4 times the $7,000, not $7,000 for every unit, because much of the work is redundant for non-unique units. And there is, like I said, there's a cap of $50,000 for a townhouse project. Now, keep in mind, these rebates are in addition to our step code rebate. So you get your $7,000 potentially, if that's what your invoices came to, and then you can tack on the rebates that you get for step 3, 4, or 5, depending on what you achieve. So very healthy rebates. And the projects must be in our shared service territory, being Fortis, the area where Fortis provides both the electric and the gas utility. So this would not apply to buildings outside of Fortis electric grid, West Kelowna, Vernon, Lake Country, and further up north and down towards the lower mainland. Moving on. All right, so with the city of Kelowna recently adopting step 3 and other municipalities shortly to follow suit, here's just a quick example of how your rebates can add up. Wrong screen. So like I said, the step code incentive, if you're achieving step 3 is $4,000, you add your EA support in there, it's another $1,000 for your energy advisor. If you had a fireplace, it's $500. A smart thermostat, it's it's 100. And if you happen to do the design offer on top of that, you're looking at over 12 grand for a single family home or a unique townhouse. And for those ones that aren't unique, you would still get the $4,000 for the step code and the $1,000 for the EA support and the fireplace and the thermostat. You just wouldn't get the $7,000 for all of those duplicate unit types. So very significant rebate. And we're hoping this will help educate people on how to build a better home. A lot of the things that these consultants are looking for in providing our vapor barrier details, thermal bridging opportunities to help reduce that. Just a lot of the building envelope science, and on the mechanical side, room by room heat loss calculations, proper equipment sizing. So there's a lot of little things that you can do to start getting up into the next steps. How are we doing? We're doing okay for time. So in addition to our residential programs, we also offer a plethora of commercial rebates as well. The largest one is the commercial new construction performance program. This is for part 3 buildings. It's quite a complex calculation to get to the rebates, to determine how much the rebate is, but it can amount up to $500,000 for a large project. In addition, we have our natural gas water heater rebates, which have been around for many years, and the rebate amount depends on how large and how many pieces of equipment you have in the building. We have our natural gas boiler rebate that's been around for many, many years. It's been hugely successful, and that has rebates offers up to $60,000. We have a fairly new program. It's our condensing makeup air unit, air handling and rooftop unit program. Disregard the title, there's a typo there. It's not rooftop condensing units, it's just rooftop units. And we do offer up to $9,000 per piece of equipment for that one. We also have our radiant tube and unit heater rebates for installing high efficiency equipment. And that rebate is all based on the size of your equipment, the BTUs. We have our natural gas kitchen equipment rebate and our multi-unit residential building rebate. Now this one, the MERB rebate is only in our service territory, and basically it's just a packaging of all of our gas and electric rebates into one program, so it makes it very easy for our customers to apply. I got to admit, commercial programs are not my forte. I live more in the residential world, but Stephanie Au, whose contact information here is at the bottom, is a fantastic resource. If you have any questions about the rebates, please call Steph. She's top notch, and she'll be happy to help you out right away. Oh, just a fun fact, we received over 800 commercial rebate applications in 2020 and paid out approximately $6 million in incentives just for the commercial rebates, with roughly 25% of those dollars going to projects coming from the interior. So I'd just like to give a big shout out for all of those of you who have submitted commercial rebate applications to us. in 2020, and we look forward to paying out even more incentives in 2021. So thank you for that. From a new technology standpoint, this is something that is taking over a lot of the multifamily, the townhouse market. We're seeing it in a high-rise project down in Penticton, and it's called a combi system. It's only in the residential marketplace at this point, but I don't know why it couldn't be used in some commercial applications. It's been hugely popular in the Lower Mainland for the last 3 to 5 years, and is now getting some really good traction up here in the Okanagan. The combi system utilizes a gas-fired tankless water heater, shown right here. This could also be a combi boiler if someone needed more output because they wanted to do a pool or some driveway snow melt, for example. But what we're seeing mostly is just a tankless water heater. It can be coupled to your inflow radiant heating, but it's in most applications what we're seeing is it's connected to a hydronic fan coil, and so basically it just runs your domestic hot water from the tankless water heater through a radiator. The fan blows air across the radiator of the ductwork and to the vents. And just like a gas furnace, you can easily add an A coil to this for cooling. You can also get these fan coils in a horizontal application, so they would hang from the ceiling, maybe even above a suspended ceiling space. So quite flexible. Options for installation depending on what your building has room for. The advantage of this system is that it provides both high efficiency space and hot water heating with a single gas-fired appliance, which means only a single vent to the exterior of the home versus the typical application, which may have 2 sets of vents, one for a gas furnace and one for a gas water heater. And with the buildings we're building, especially townhouses, having access to an exterior wall is getting more and more difficult because the buildings are getting narrower. There's more and more glass on them, and just finding places to vent multiple gas appliances is getting to be a bit of a struggle. The other advantage is that it's very high efficiency. That tankless water heater is fully modulating, so it can ramp up and ramp down based on the demand by the thermostat or the plumbing fixtures. And it's always running at its peak efficiency because it can modulate, versus if you had a gas water heater in a furnace. Many furnaces are just 2-stage. So it's off, it's low, it's high. So it's always shifting between 2 gears. Just imagine driving your car, a 2-speed car, not very efficient. This is more like a CVT transmission where it can fully modulate, and it's always running at its peak efficiency. The other huge benefit we're seeing from these fan coils, these mid-velocity systems, that it consists of a single trunk. As you can see in this picture here, you have one main trunk through the basement, kind of like you do now, but your takeoffs are just small, flexible ducts, typically 2 or 3 inch in diameter. They go to a little termination kit. They're great because they fit through floor joists. This picture doesn't show it great because it's using dimension lumber for floor joists, not sure why. But in most new home construction, those are TJIs, and you can easily drill a hole through a TJI and run that flex through it. So you're not having to run bulkheads to go, perpendicular to your floor joist run. So another huge advantage to a mid-velocity system versus a conventional furnace with low velocity ductwork. So just we're seeing this really starting to take place in the Okanagan. Here are a few projects that are under construction or have already been completed. In Penticton, Azura is building this really nice riverside townhomes project right next to the channel. Carrington Homes is building this block 20 townhouses up on Clifton Road near Caramillo. That's just started. There are a couple buildings in the ground now. Urban Park is in Rutland. That's actually a rental building, but that developer has installed combi systems in all of the units. And then down in Penticton, we have the Skaha Lake Towers project, 3 towers varying in heights between 12 and 16 stories. Building 1 is complete, occupied. Building 2, the roof's on. They should be moving people in here not too long from now. And then the next building is, I believe, another 16 stories as well. This developer has been using combi systems for 10 years. He doesn't use a mid-velocity system. He still uses a conventional low velocity, but it's basically the same. It's a fan coil with ductwork that all runs above a drop ceiling, attached to a tankless water heater, and he has a small condensing unit out on the sun deck that provides the cooling. So really great system. My daughter's just heading to school, so just saying goodbye. Yeah, so just some real projects here in the Okanagan that are using this technology. It's her last day of school, so she's heading off to write her pre-calc final. And one last thing, boy, we're right on money. Suite metering. So the last thing I wanted to talk today is about our suite metering and piping to suites programs. Many of you know that this program formerly was called a vertical subdivision, but we renamed it to suite metering a couple of years ago, as this seems to be a bit more self-explanatory. For those of you who are not familiar with our suite metering or vertical subdivision technology, simply put, this is the installation of individual suite gas meters inside the building within meter closets in the common area, typically in the hallway or in a parkade, just like we do with electric meters. The good thing about our suite metering program is that typically we can install all of this natural gas infrastructure inside a condo building at no cost to the developer, provided there's enough gas load in the building to justify it. And we can also look at purchasing the house lines from the developer at the completion, which those are the lines that are run down the hallway between the individual suite meters and the suites themselves. If there's enough load there, we can purchase those back from the developer at the end. So, oops, there we go. So the utilization of our suite metering program is a financial benefit to the developer, as well as to the end user, as it helps reduce strata fees, which is also great for the developers. That makes it easier to sell their homes. And it's a great way to promote energy conservation, as the building occupants will be responsible for their own energy usage and wastage. So in that, it helps promote energy efficiency and conservation, which is something we're all about. And with that, it looks like we are, wow, talk about being right on time, reached the end of my presentation. So I'm going to pass the floor back over to John. Here you go, John.
Great. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Wade. I had lots of information to take away from that. And as you mentioned, we're right on time. So I think what's important to note from Wade's presentation is if you're building anything bigger than a garden shed, we've probably got an incentive for you to on appliances or buildings. So get a hold of us. As I mentioned, Google Energy Solutions Managers at FortisBC, whether it's electric, natural gas, residential, or commercial application, we'll connect you to the right resources to make sure that you get the information that you need. So I'd like to thank the UDI for sponsoring today's events. I see that our Q&As are complete here at this time. That's wonderful. So I'm going to wrap this up by thanking everyone again for your participation today. I hope you found value in what you heard. And if you have any questions regarding energy policy today or in the future, please feel free to reach out. We did a high-level flyover of our clean growth pathway and our pathways report. We have much more detailed information to share, and happy to do so. So again, thank you to everyone, and we wish you a very pleasant day. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.